Am I the asshole for telling my ex that she needs to figure it out when it comes to hosting people for her grandmother's funeral, even though I'm living in her grandmother's house? My ex and I finalized our divorce earlier this year. While we were married, we bought what used to be her grandmother's house. This house was built in the 1910s and had been in her family for generations. It's a large, old house, and long before I ever came into the picture, it was essentially the family house, the place everyone stayed whenever they came into town for holidays, events, or emergencies. That dynamic continued after we bought it, and honestly, it was a major factor in why I eventually divorced her. Her family treated the house like a free hotel, and I was expected to accommodate it no matter what. When we purchased the house about 5 years ago, it was done almost entirely with my premarital savings and an inheritance I received. Despite what some people assume, we didn't get a family discount. The house had been on the market for over a year, the price had already been reduced multiple times, and we paid the listed price at the time. The reason we bought it in the first place was because her grandmother needed money for end-of-life care and could no longer live independently. Fast forward to the divorce. Because of our postnuptial agreement and the financial breakdown, the court determined that I owned 90% of the house. My ex desperately wanted the house to stay in the family. She proposed several options, putting it in a trust for our child, her keeping it outright, or some hybrid arrangement. I rejected all of those. I was very clear, either we sell the house, she buys me out, or I buy her out. She didn't have the money to buy me out, and she begged me not to sell. Against my better judgment, I agreed to buy her out and keep the house myself. It is now legally my house. The day after Christmas, her grandmother passed away. While it was sad, it wasn't unexpected. She had been ill for years. A few days later, yesterday afternoon, I hear a knock at the door. I open it to find my ex's cousin, his wife, and their kids standing there with luggage. Apparently, they had driven into town for the funeral scheduled later this week. They told me they were staying at the house, which is their long-standing family term for what is now my home. Confused and irritated, I called my ex. She admitted that her cousin and sister had texted her saying they'd be staying there, and she told them it was fine without asking me. She apologized and said she'd been overwhelmed running funeral errands. Then she asked if I would just host them because there's nowhere else for people to stay. I told her no. She pushed back, saying hotels are expensive, people are struggling financially, and that the house has plenty of room. She even suggested they stay in the finished basement, which has its own entrance, bathroom, and kitchenette, as if that somehow made it less invasive. I told her no again. I explained that this is no longer her family's house, and she does not get to volunteer my home to other people, especially without asking me first. She got upset, accused me of being heartless during a funeral, and hung up on me. I then had to tell her cousin and his family, to their faces, that they could not stay. Unsurprisingly, that didn't go over well. For additional context, my ex originally wanted to put the house into a trust with a life estate for me and the remainder going to our 3-year-old son. That arrangement would have prevented me from ever selling the house. While I have no immediate plans to sell, I refuse to lock myself into something that limits my future options. I do already have a trust set up for my son, where he will inherit my assets when I die. Now my ex is furious, her family thinks I'm cruel, and I'm being painted as the villain for refusing to open my home during a funeral week, even though this situation exists because my ex made promises about my house without my consent. So, am I the asshole for telling her she needs to figure it out and refusing to host her family?